Chapter 2. The Anomaly and the God. The first punch did not look like much. There was no roaring aura, no flaring ki, no slow motion. Saitama stepped in and threw a straight right, just like he had done a million times in the cramped gym he barely remembered joining. His fist traveled a short distance. The universe made a noise, like someone dropping a piano into a quarry. Darkseid brought his forearm up to block. The impact rang across Apokolips. The stone platform under their feet disintegrated radially, cracks spiderwebbing out in a perfect circle, before exploding downward in a shower of jagged fragments. The shockwave flattened the nearest parademons, crest molten rivers lower in their channels, and made distant factory towers sway like reeds in a storm. Saitama slid back half a step. Darkseid did not move. He felt it, though. For the briefest instant, the god of tyranny knew the sensation of resistance, a pressure against his arm he could not simply ignore. It did not break him, did not crush his bones, but it forced him to acknowledge that there was something there. He had not felt that in a very long time. The skin around his forearm was faintly scuffed, as though he had brushed it against something mildly abrasive. A line of hairline fractures traced themselves across the surface of his stone flesh, then slowly healed, the cracks knitting together. Saitama stared at his own fist, mildly disappointed. "Huh," he said. "You didn't explode." Darkseid's lips thinned. "Nor did you," he said. He answered with a backhand. The blow connected with the side of Saitama's head. From a distance, it looked like someone had swung a mountain at a traffic cone. The air between them compressed into a visible disk. The shockwave tore across the plateau, ripping up rock, paradigms, and unlucky fortifications. The remains of the platform finally gave up holding together and sank into the magma trench below. Saitama vanished into a blur of yellow and white cape. He became, briefly, a meteor. He slammed into a distant cliff face, carving a man-shaped crater into the dark rock. Pebbles rained down around him. Above, a chain as thick as a building snapped, sending a vast industrial platform crashing to a lower level in a scream of tortured metal. Dust cleared. Saitama stood in the crater with his head slightly tilted. "Okay," he said. That actually kind of stung. He shook it off, cracked his neck once to either side, and kicked off the cliff. The air boomed when he moved, a delayed effect after his body had already gone. He crossed the distance between them in an eye blink, a yellow streak tearing through the smoke. Darkseid raised his hand again, eyes glowing. Saitama punched him in the face. There was no defense this time, no calculated block. Darkseid had expected the bald anomaly to close, but not quite this fast. Not after being struck with a force that should have scattered his atoms across the stratosphere. Saitama's fist met Darkseid's jaw. The sky above them briefly turned white. Sound vanished for a heartbeat, eaten by the force of impact, then returned all at once as something deeper than thunder. A ring of compressed air raced outward like a visible wall, smashing through parademon formations, flipping war machines on their backs, collapsing factory roofs. Darkseid flew backward. He did not do that very often. His body plowed a long furrow through one of the fortress's upper walls, tore through several tiers of ancient stone and living machinery, and finally embedded itself in a throne room that had seen the fall of heroes and the breaking of gods. He carved his own new seat into the far wall. Chunks of stone pattered to the floor. A quiet, strangled noise leaked from Darkseid's throat, where he watched via energy screen in the control chamber. Awe warred with a kind of religious terror. To see Darkseid, the fixed point of his cosmos, physically moved, against his will, was like watching the concept of gravity slip on a wet floor. "My lord," he whispered. On the screen, dust cleared. Darkseid stepped out of the crater. His head turned slowly, grinding bits of stone from the side of his face. One eye smoldered more brightly than the other. He rolled his jaw once. The damage was minor. His flesh refashioned itself, microscopic fractures sealing, pulverized stone falling away. Yet the fact that there had been damage at all made the moment interesting. There was a new line in his internal calculations now. A variable that had not existed before. "Darkseid," he said calmly, though there was a new vibration under the calm. "Run a full spectrum analysis of the last exchange." Darkseid snapped into motion. At once, great Darkseid. And alert the Furies, Darkseid added. Their presence may be required. As you command. Darkseid walked through the shattered wall, back toward the hole Saitama's punch had carved across half the fortress. He did not hurry. Saitama bounced once on the wreckage of a fallen tower, landing lightly on the broken edge. He peered at the hole he had just punched someone through, and gave a low whistle. Nice, he said. He looked down at his fist, flexing his fingers. He had not gone all out, not even close. That had been what he thought of as a normal punch, calibrated slightly up from guy robbing a bank to weird dragon thing stonking around downtown. The guy was still very much in one piece. And he hits kind of hard, too, Saitama said. Not bad. He realized, slowly, that his heart was beating a tiny bit faster than usual. Not much, a barely noticeable uptick. But it was there, like the faintest echo of something he used to feel all the time back when hero work still came with nervous excitement. He tried to decide if that made him happy. Apokolips rumbled around him, offended by the hole in its fortress. Alarms that normally only signaled wholesale cosmic war blared from sirens the size of office buildings. Parademons circled warily at a distance, keeping out of range. Below, in the slave pits carved into the lower tiers, a quiet murmur passed through the ranks of the broken, chained bodies. Far beneath the fortress, a hunched figure with a soldered metal mask over half his face looked up. He had been a scientist once, somewhere else, on another world in another lifetime, before the fire and the chains. He whispered, "What was that?" And Maber in Chains answered, in a hoarse voice, "Something hit Darkseid." "You lie," the scientist said automatically. "Nothing hits Darkseid." A third slave, her back crisscrossed with the scars of energy whips, hugged her knees tighter. She did not speak, but in her eyes, for the first time in years, there was something that might be mistaken for hope. On a spinning blue and green world in another universe, the League was arguing. They did it quietly. When you put the most powerful beings on Earth into a room, quietly was usually the best available option. Around them, the watchtower hummed. The space station's long, skeletal arms reached out toward the stars, solar arrays glinting. Earth hung below, a swirl of clouds and continents. Superman stood near a large holographic display, showing a blazing red dot at the edge of the solar system. He had his arms folded across his chest. His cape hung still in the artificial gravity. "I'm telling you, that pattern is apocalyptian," he said. "Boom tube energy. But it's different." Batman gave the glowing point a long, considering look. His cowl's lenses flicked as data scrolled across them. "Different how?" he asked. "Frequency skew," said Cyborg from his station, fingers moving on holographic controls. "Normally, boom tubes punch through in a very specific set of dimensional harmonics. This looks like they tried to lock onto something outside our local multiverse. It was reaching for a very particular target, too, not an area." Flash squinted at the display from his lounging position in a nearby chair. "So, like a customized portal? Space post office? Package this weird energy to a guy who lives 3 universes over kind of thing?" "Not funny," Wonder Woman said. Her arms were crossed too, but in a different way. Her eyes were on the red dot, and the set of her jaw said she was already picturing Apokolips's fire pits. "I wasn't joking," Flash protested. "I mean, if there is a space post office, we should probably know. Just in case my mail is late, for a cosmic reason." The red dot on the display flared. Superman's head snapped up. His ears had been humming since that first distant shockwave rippled through reality, like something had shaken the edge of his senses. Now the hum spiked. "That was Apokolips," he said. "Something hit it. Hard." Batman's fingers moved. The display split, showing a new waveform. Peaks and troughs that did not match any known weapon signature. "Impact energy equivalent," he murmured, "to several small to moderate nuclear detonations. Localized, occurring over less than a millisecond. But there's no residual radiation, no fallout pattern. It's blunt force." He did not say a punch. He did not need to. "Could it be Orion?" Wonder Woman asked. "Orion, turning against Darkseid again. If Orion hit his father that hard," Batman said, "Apokolips would be in pieces." There was a faint flicker of light at the edge of the room. It did not come from any of their systems. I would not be so sure of that, a new voice said. They turned. A man in a chair was hovering in the air. The chair should not have been able to hover under any normal set of equations. It was angular, strange, covered in glowing circuits that hinted at a deeper geometry. The man seated in it wore blue and gold, with a helmet that hid his eyes completely. Metron, Superman said. Greetings, Metron said, in the tone of someone acknowledging a mildly interesting science experiment. The disturbance you feel is indeed on Apokolips. And you are quite right, Batman. That is no new god blow. He turned his hidden gaze toward the swirling glitch on the hologram. That is something else, he said. Something new has appeared in Darkseid's realm. An anomaly. A variable. Yeah, about that. Green Lantern crossed his arms, floating up slightly off the ground without seeming to notice. We've been through this before. Every time you show up, it's, oh no, universe-breaking thing. Better let it play out so I can watch. How about we skip to the help instead of observe step? Metron ignored him. Darkseid is intrigued, he said simply. Which is both rare and dangerous. He acted first, of course, as he always does, attempting to erase the unknown with his Omega effect. The unknown resisted. Superman's eyes widened. Resisted the Omega beams, yes. Metron pointed at the waveform, twice, in fact. The second time was almost comical. Flash looked at Superman and mouthed, comical. Superman shrugged.
Wonder Woman!
Step forward. Who or what is this anomaly? Metron's chair rotated slightly. A man, he said. From a universe very different from yours. A singular existence. A force. In his own reality, he is unmatched. He has defeated every enemy with a single blow. His limitation is not physical, but existential. He lacks fulfillment. That man's eyes narrowed. You're saying Darkseid found a bored god? I am saying, Metron said, that Darkseid found a man so far beyond his own world's metrics of power that even my Mobius chair cannot easily model his upper limits. He paused. It is very irritating. Name, Batman said. Do you have a name? Metron's expression shifted. Ever so slightly. He calls himself Saitama. Cyborg blinked. Saitama? That's it? No code name? No Lord of Punching, or Bald God of Destruction, or anything. My systems recognize neither title, Metron said dryly. Superman looked at the swirl of Apokolips on the display. He saw, in his memory, the slave pits, the parademon hordes, the broken worlds. If Darkseid sees him as a threat, he said, he will either try to kill him, control him, or turn him against us. Exactly, Metron said, and I am very interested to see which outcome occurs. Batman's jaw tightened. We cannot leave someone like that alone with Darkseid. Agreed, Wonder Woman said flatly. Superman nodded once. Then when we go, now. Oh, I am both. I'm going from heaven. Well. Already plotting the coordinates, Cyborg said. Boom tube to a safe distance from the main fortress. We do initial recon, assess, extract who we can. And if we have to, Green Lantern said, we kick Darkseid's rocky teeth in. Again, Metron's chair drifted toward the wall, already fading. You cannot beat Darkseid on Apokolips, he said. Not in the conventional sense. This is his realm, his rules. Even if you kill his body, his essence will fall back into the source and reform. But perhaps today you will learn something interesting regardless. Are you coming? Superman asked. Metron smiled faintly. No, he said. I am already there, in all the ways that matter. He vanished. Flash scratched his head. I'm really starting to hate that guy. Focus, Batman said. Cyborg, open the tube. Cyborg's systems wind up. Green energy from Lantern's ring intertwined with the blue-white circuits on Cyborg's arm, stabilizing the dimensional breach. Together, they carved a hole in space. On the other side, a flicker of orange and black. Heat. Screams. Apokolips. The lead exchanged a look. Let's go, Superman said. They stepped through. On Apokolips, things were not going according to any usual plan. Saitama was lost. He had not meant to get lost. Darkseid had hit him like a speeding train made of granite and anger, and he had flown, and the next thing he knew, he was bouncing around inside some huge structure that smelled like engine grease and fear. He had come down through 3 floors and a very surprised parademon, and now he was in a long corridor lit by flickering red lights. "Huh," he said, looking around. "I think I got turned around." The corridor shook as another distant shockwave rolled through the fortress. Saitama adjusted his cape. He considered punching his way straight up and out. That usually worked. But something made him pause. The air down here had a different quality. Less open furnace heat, more heavy, recycled misery. There was a sound under the rumbling of the war machines above, a dull, constant clank of chains, and a low, collective murmur. He followed it. The corridor ended at a set of massive doors. They were not ornately decorated. They were functional, made to never be opened from the inside. Symbols of Darkseid's face were stamped into the metal like a brand. Saitama planted his hand on one door. He pushed. The door resisted for approximately 1 second. Then, it ripped off its hinges and went flying into the room beyond, flattening a row of parademon overseers like a very unceremonious sheet. The noise in the room stopped. Saitama stepped through the new opening and looked down. The slave pit stretched out beneath him like a wound in the rock. Hundreds of figures moved in cramped rows, chained together, hauling massive blocks of dark metal toward chutes that fed the furnaces. The floor was slick with oil and old blood. Overhead, energy whips cracked, driven by a handful of armored guards. Everyone had stopped to stare at the door. At him. Saitama scratched his cheek. He said. "Hi." Nobody spoke. One of the parademon overseers tried to push himself up from under the door. Saitama walked over, picked the giant sheet of metal up with one hand, and flicked it aside. It sailed across the pit, crashed into an empty platform, and came to rest in a crunch of rock. The overseer let out a terrified hiss. Saitama tapped him once with a finger. The parademon fainted. He turned back to the pit. Rows and rows of eyes stared up at him. Some glowed faintly with enforced circuitry. Some were dull. Some were wide with sudden, dangerous hope. Chains rattled. "Are you guys prisoners?" Saitama asked. The question hung in the hot air. Then someone laughed. It was not a sane laugh. It was brittle and sharp, like a piece of metal breaking. "Prisoners," the laughing voice said. "That is one word for it." The speaker stood near the front of the pit, where the ascent ramp met the floor. He was thin, hairless like Saitama, but for very different reasons. His scalp scarred and burned. A metal collar circled his neck, connected by cables to the wall. His hands were calloused and bloody from holding chains. He looked up at Saitama with eyes that had seen too much. "We are the raw material," he said. "The fuel, the proof that Darkseid exists and that we do not matter." "Oh," Saitama said. "That sounds lame." A whisper ran through the slaves. Lame. He had called Apokolips lame. Saitama hopped down into the pit. The drop was 20 meters. He landed without a sound, boots touching the slick ground as lightly as a feather. Up close, the stench of sweat, oil, and despair hit him harder. He looked at the chains. Massive, black links, pulsing faintly with restraining energy. He reached out, wrapped his fingers around one, and tugged experimentally. The metal snapped, like dry pasta. The entire line of slaves attached to that chain staggered as their binding suddenly fell slack. Several fell to their knees. Others stared at the broken link. Saitama nodded. "All right, so it's not invincible or anything." He raised his voice, just enough to carry. "Hold still," he said. "I'll get the rest." He vanished into motion. To the slaves, it was as if a sudden, erratic wind tore through the pit. Chains shattered up and down the rows. Energy collars sparked, then fell dead. The walls trembled under the rapid fire of tiny impacts. In less than the time it takes to draw a breath, every chain in the pit lay on the ground in pieces. Saitama reappeared where he had started, dusting his gloves. "Okay," he said. "You're loose." Nobody moved. They stared at their wrists, their ankles, the broken lengths of chain at their feet. "I would suggest you, leave," Saitama said. "This place sucks." A woman with scars across her face looked around frantically. "We cannot," she said. "There is nowhere to go. This is the only world we have now, and Darkseid will kill us for trying." "Probably slowly," the bald man added. "He likes making examples." Saitama frowned. "Why?" he asked. The scarred woman stared at him. "Because he is Darkseid," she said. "Because this is what he is." "Yeah, but why?" Saitama insisted. "What's the point of making everybody miserable all the time? It seems like a lot of effort." That stumped them. They were used to pain, not philosophical questions about its efficiency. Above, there was a distant crash. Something heavy hitting. Something heavier. Darkseid was coming back. Saitama sighed. "Look," he said. "I'm kind of in the middle of a thing with your boss. But if you want to get out of here, I'll deal with him. Then, I don't know, punch open a hole to somewhere that doesn't smell like a burnt microwave." They looked at each other, at the broken chains, at the hole the new stranger had made in the door. For the first time in years, a choice existed. A bald man with the metal collar stepped forward. He bowed slightly, as much as his aching spine would allow. "Who are you?" he asked. Saitama rubbed the back of his head. "Just a guy who is a hero for fun," he said. "Name's Saitama." The name meant nothing to them. The words hero for fun meant everything. Back in the fortress, Darkseid reached the edge of the slave pit balcony. Below, he saw chaos. The pit, once a perfectly ordered machine of suffering, was full of movement. Chains lay in ruins. Overseers were down. Hundreds of slaves were not at their stations. They were looking up at the figure in the middle of it all, the bald one. Darkseid's eyes narrowed. Darkseid's voice crackled in his ear. "Great Darkseid," he babbled. "The anomaly is disrupting the intake pits. He has somehow severed the binding chains, overridden the control circuits, undermined the entire structure of fear that holds them." Darkseid said nothing. He watched as Saitama waved awkwardly to someone. The gesture was small, but the impact rippled through the pit. Hope is contagious, he thought, even when carried by fools. Annoying. He stepped off the balcony. Gravity adjusted to please him. He descended slowly, like the inevitability of night. The heat of the furnaces bent away from him, not daring to singe his flesh. The slaves saw him. Their newfound energy froze. Some fell to their knees automatically. Others scrambled backward. A wave of old, conditioned terror washed through them, overpowering the fragile bloom of hope. Saitama looked up. "Oh hey," he said. "Rockface, you found me." Darkseid landed opposite him in the pit. The slaves formed a circle without realizing it, backing away, opening space for the gods to speak. "You interfere," Darkseid said. "You break my chains. You interrupt the flow of misery that feeds my world." "Yeah," Saitama said. "It's kind of a bad vibe down here." "You free those who have no freedom," Darkseid went on. "You suggest escape to those who have never had the concept. You introduce disorder into my order. This cannot be allowed." "Your order sucks," Saitama said. Darkseid's gaze cooled several degrees. "I had considered," he said, "turning you to my purpose. Your strength would be a useful tool. With the proper application of the Omega Sanction, I could have broken your mind, redirected your will, made you a hound that hunts at my command. But I see now that your affection is too great. You are not merely powerful. You are corrosive." He lifted his hand. The air around his fingers bent, reality thickening. "This time," he said, "you will not be so fortunate. The Omega Sanction does not merely destroy. It imprisons. It sends the soul on a journey through unending lives of misery, each worse than the last, until it learns despair so intimate it forgets its own name." Saitama squinted. "That sounds complicated," he said, "and kind of creepy." Darkseid's eyes blazed. The beams that emerged this time were not like before. They were narrow, precise, threads of pure intent. They did not twist or zigzag. They moved in straight lines, crossing the space between them almost lazily. Saitama watched them come. The slaves watched too. He thought about dodging. He thought about batting them aside. He thought about punching Darkseid again before the beams hoot. Instead, for reasons he did not fully understand himself, he did nothing. The Omega Sanction lances struck him in the chest. The world vanished. Saitama stood in a supermarket aisle. He blinked. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Shelves groaned under the weight of packaged food, cleaning supplies, assorted trash. A cart squeaked as an old woman pushed it past. He looked down. He was wearing his pajamas, the cheap ones with the cartoon fish. He scratched his cheek. "Huh," he said. Something was wrong. He took a step, and the floor lurched under his feet. The aisle stretched, lengthening impossibly, the end receding like a misspelled dream. The labels on the cans smeared, rewriting themselves into symbols he did not know. A voice whispered in his ear. "You will live 1,000 lives," it said. "You will fail in each. You will never find meaning. You will watch everyone you love rot. You will die, again and again, smaller each time." Saitama frowned. "That's oddly specific," he said. The supermarket dissolved. He stood on a battlefield. Smoke, fire, cities burning. A monster the size of a skyscraper loomed over him, laughing, tentacles crushing entire neighborhoods. He launched himself at it, fist cocked. He hit its face. Nothing happened. His knuckles cracked. Pain flared up his arm. Not the dull ache of a pulled muscle, but a sharp, sickening crunch. He screamed. The monster laughed. Every punch bounced off. Each one broke him a little more. His bones shattered. His muscles tore. His lungs filled with blood. And still he tried. Because that was what he was supposed to do. He failed. People died. He lay on the ground, body ruined, watching the thing stomp away. The voice in his ear chuckled. "Feel it," it said. "Feel the inadequacy. Repeat." The scene rewound. This time, he was on a different world, fighting a different thing. A mass of darkness that swallowed light and screamed in the voices of the people it had eaten. He punched and kicked and tried every trick he could imagine. He always lost. Again, again, again. Lifetimes rolled over him. He grew old and weak. Died in bed. Died in alleys. Died on battlefields. Sometimes he was a hero. Sometimes a nobody. Sometimes a terrified bystander. The only constant was failure. Every attempt to make things better crumbled into dust. Most minds screamed and broke long before that point. Identity shredded. Hope annihilated. They sank into the muck of despair, where Darkseid could shape them at his leisure. Saitama walked through it all like he was flipping channels. He felt the pain. He felt the loss. He watched the monsters win, the people die, the worlds burn. It was unpleasant. His chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with physical damage. But something was off. In every scenario, no matter how elaborate, no matter how artfully constructed, something did not quite fitting. The punches felt wrong. His body moved wrong. The world reacted wrong. It all felt fake. Like bad training simulations in an arcade, he sighed. The battlefield melted. He sat at his apartment table, in his yellow suit, staring at a single leak on a plate. The voice in his ear tried again, desperate now. "Nothing you do matters," it hissed. "In the end, you are weak, hopeless, powerless. You will watch the universe die and be unable to lift a finger. You are a joke, a failure, a nothing." Saitama took a bite of leek. It tasted bad. He made a face. "This is boring," he said. The illusion cracked. Darkseid did not understand boredom. He understood desire, fear, hatred, ambition. He knew how to inflate and deflate egos, how to twist love into shame, courage into cowardice. But boredom was different. Boredom was immunity. The Omega Sanction was founded on the premise that endless struggle without reward would crush a spirit. Saitama had been living that reality for years. No matter what enemy he faced, it ended in one punch. No matter how much he trained, nothing challenged him. He knew what it was to feel like nothing mattered. He had already gone through that and come out the other side. So when the Sanction tried to drown him in despair, all it managed to do was bore him. Sorry. he said to no one. I've already done the whole what's the point of my life thing. It sucked. He stood up from the table. The walls of unreality strained as he walked toward them. He punched once. The Omega construct shattered like glass. Back in the slave pit on Apokolips, all of this happened in less than a heartbeat. Darkseid's Omega Sanction lances burrowed into Saitama's chest and vanished. The bald man's body went still, eyes unfocused, as his soul was dragged through the labyrinth of artificial lives. Darkseid watched. The slaves watched. Darkseid watched, breathless. Then Saitama blinked. "Oh," he said. "That was a weird nap." The Omega sigils on Darkseid's hand flickered, then flared angrily. "Impossible!" Saitama scratched his ear. "You tried to mind control me or something, right?" he said. That was lane 2. The slave pit went completely silent. Even the furnaces seemed confused. Something changed in Darkseid's expression. Very slightly. The corner of his mouth twitched downward. The glow in his eyes cooled from blazing rage to something colder. Calculation. "You truly are an anomaly," he said. "You have no respect for my power. You resist the Omega effect. You tear apart my tools of control as if they were paper chains made by children." Saitama shrugged. "Maybe they're just not that good," he said. "Have you tried, being nice to people instead?" The suggestion hit Apokolips like a foreign word with no translation. The slave stared at him as if he had proposed replacing the furnaces with ice cream stands. Darkseid actually laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. It was brief and sharp, like a knife blade against bone. "You misunderstand the nature of reality," he said. "There is no nice. There is only will and the lack of it. I am the expression of will. These," he gestured at the slaves, "are the expression of its absence." He took a step forward. "Once, I thought the anti-life equation would complete this expression, give me the final proof that free will is an illusion. I chased it across worlds. I tore apart minds. I have come close. But you," he gestured at Saitama with one heavy hand, "you stand there, free in a way that defies even my understanding," he said. "You shake off my chains because you already live without them. Your apathy is not submission, it is content. You undermine both my slaves and my enemies simply by existing." His eyes flared. "I cannot allow that." "Yeah, you mentioned," Saitama said. "Look, I'm not really trying to attack your whole whatever that was. I just want to go home and maybe free these people on the way out. If you could just stop being terrible for 5 minutes, that would be cool." Darkseid began to reply. He did not get the chance. The air above the slave pit tore open. Green light flooded in, edged with crackling blue-white circuitry. A circular portal yawned wide, its boundaries defined by lantern energy and high-tech boom circuitry. "Okay, I know that smell," Saitama said, wrinkling his nose, as Apokolips' furnace stench mixed with something else. "Who microwaved fish?" 4 figures dropped through the breach. Superman hit the ground in a 3-point landing that cracked the stone and sent a brief gust through the pit. Wonder Woman descended with the controlled grace of someone who did not need to pose to be impressive. Green Lantern floated in, ring glowing. Batman rode down in a controlled glide, cape spread, using Griffin-style micro-thrusters built into his suit. Cyborg followed last, using repulsor bursts, sealing the tube behind them. The slaves recoiled again at the sudden influx of unfamiliar power. Chains rattled on the ground. A few fell to their knees reflexively, not sure yet if these newcomers were any better. Superman straightened. He had been ready for many things. He had not been ready for this. On one side of the pit stood Darkseid, flanked by a handful of nervous parademon guards. The air around him seethed with residual Omega energy. On the other side stood a bald man in a yellow jumpsuit and red gloves, looking slightly sleepy, slightly annoyed, and completely unafraid. Between them, hundreds of freed slaves, chains broken. Superman's senses took it all in. The remains of shattered energy bindings. The pattern of structural damage in the fortress. The reverberations of recent impacts still humming through the rock. The numbers did not add up to anything he knew. Green Lantern's ring whispered data directly into his mind. Power levels unknown, it reported. Darkseid reading as usual. The bald guy, ring cannot get a stable reading. Every time I try to scan, I get static. Flash's voice crackled over Cyborg's internal comm. How's it look, guys? Bad, Cyborg murmured back. We walked into the middle of something big. Wonder Woman's eyes fixed on Darkseid. Darkseid, she said, voice hard. You will release these people. Darkseid laughed again. Twice in one day. It was almost a record. You bring your league into my home, he said. You demand that I release my property. You stand beside an anomaly who has already destroyed much of my infrastructure. You have grown bold. Batman was not looking at Darkseid. He was looking at Saitama. Saitama looked back. For a moment, the two men just stared at each other. Batman's mind raced, cataloguing. The suit, cheap material by the look of it, but somehow surviving Darkseid's attacks. The posture, relaxed, too relaxed, like someone for whom none of this was really a big deal. The eyes, bored. And yet, name, Batman said. Saitama blinked. Huh? Your name, Batman repeated. Who are you? Oh, Saitama said. Saitama, I'm, a hero for fun. Green Lantern's head swiveled between them. A hero for fun, he repeated. Like, as a hobby? Pretty much, Saitama said. Superman stepped slightly between Saitama and Darkseid, not quite sure yet which one needed protecting from which. Mr. Saitama, he said, careful, friendly. My name is Superman. We are here because we sensed something happening on Apokolips. Darkseid is a threat to many worlds. If he has brought you here against your will, we can help. Saitama tilted his head. Superman, he said. Right. You look like a Superman. Superman smiled faintly. Thank you, he said. Saitama nodded at Darkseid. Yeah. He pulled me through some eye laser bud portal thing whilst trying to shop, he said. Very annoying. We can get you home, Superman said. But first, we have to deal with Darkseid. Saitama considered that. His gaze flicked to the slaves, to the broken chains, to the furnaces. Yeah, he said. I was kind of in the middle of that. Darkseid's eyes burned brighter. League, he said. You arrive late and outmatched. I would have dealt with the anomaly in time. Now you complicate matters. But no matter, you will fall with him. He spread his arms. Parademons, he said. To me, the sky above the pit darkened as boom tubes popped open in rapid succession. Parademons poured through, a living storm of wings and weapons, forming layered ranks around the arena. The slaves huddled back, clutching each other, eyes wide. That man's jaw clenched. They were outnumbered. On Apokolips, no less. He weighed options. Then he looked at Saitama again. The bald man was cracking his neck lazily, as if trying to work out a kink. He looked not frightened, not excited, just mildly inconvenienced. Batman's instincts screamed at him that this man was the variable. Superman, he murmured over the League's private channel. Initial observation. Saitama has already survived direct Omega attacks and a physical exchange with Darkseid. He freed the slaves. He is probably on our side. Probably? Green Lantern muttered. Work with what we have, Batman said. Out loud, Superman pitched his voice to Carrie. Saitama, he said, if we take Darkseid, will you help keep his army off these people? Saitama looked up at the swirling parademons. He had been about to punch Darkseid again. He still wanted to. Then there was a little itch under his skin now. A tiny thrill at the idea of fighting someone who did not die in one hit. But the slaves' faces tugged at him. That was the thing about being a hero, he thought. It was never really about the fight. Yeah, all right, he said. I'll swat the bugs. He took a step forward. Darkseid glared at him. You presume much, he said. You think this is as simple as swatting flies and trading blows. You do not understand the stakes. Saitama rolled his shoulders. I understand this, he said. You hurt people who can't fight back. That pisses me off. The air between them tightened. League, Batman said quietly. Target Darkseid. Support each other. Let Saitama handle the horde, and try not to get in his way. Fine by me, Green Lantern said. His ring flared, building a massive green barrier overhead to block incoming fire. Wonder Woman drew her sword, eyes blazing with righteous fury. For every soul you have broken, she told Darkseid, I will strike. Superman stepped up beside her. Darkseid smiled. Come then, he said. Let us test the limits of your courage and his strength. He gestured skyward. Parademons. Kill the anomaly. Break the league. Leave the slaves for last. The sky screamed as the horde dove. Saitama took a deep breath. For the first time in what felt like forever, he was outnumbered, surrounded, and staring down an enemy that, if not quite a challenge yet, at least refused to go away in one punch. His heart beat just a little faster. Okay, he said. Serious. He launched himself upward into the oncoming storm of parademons. The first row disappeared in a flurry of red gloves and obliterated armor. Far below, in the slave pit of Apokolips, people who had forgotten how to hope watched a bold man in a cheap costume tear into the sky like a yellow comet, and watched gods in capes charge a stone tyrant. For the first time, they saw the equation of their world change. In Darkseid's eyes, twin Omega sigils burned. In Batman's mind, new contingency plans assembled themselves, all revolving around one name: Saitama. And somewhere far away, sitting in his impossible chair, Metron leaned forward. Interesting, he said quietly. Very interesting. The war for Apokolips had a new variable, and the DC universe was about to learn what it meant when a hero who could defeat anything with one punch decided that maybe, just this once, he was willing to throw more than one.